Chair report, which I have right here. TRAC Chair O'Hare attended last month's PSTA board meeting on April 24th. He, along with 16 other transit riders, provided public comment at Pinellas public hearing against the proposed service cuts. After the hearing, the board voted unanimously against service cuts at this time and will continue to work towards securing much needed funding for PSTA. For the June service change, routes 5 and 9 will be realigned and several routes will have minor time adjustments. Also, there was an update on Central Park Avenue BRT project. Central Avenue BRT project. Specifically with respect to working out an agreement with St. Pete Beach and adjusting some project details for South Pasadena so that the project can move forward. And Brad's not here. But we're gonna ask Dave Kovar for a report on Forward Pinellas.
Thank you, and I apologize for being a minute late. Yes, as you know, Forward Pinellas meets 3 days from now, so the report I'm giving you is 28 days old. Again, I'll invite you guys all to come attend, join the citizens group. They too have 2 boards, just like PSTA. You can see them on cable TV. Forward Pinellas is the master planning, all roads, parks, bridges, and so transit sits under there. So I'm the transit liaison, and so I make a point that I always stand up for buses and transit riders while I'm there. There's about 20 of us that sit there. Again, watch it on TV if you're into that, if you're a wonk. The one thing we got, and I think I sent it to everybody actually, and I meant to only send it to a couple of you, is there's a huge project coming down on Gulf Boulevard from Walsingham down to Park, where they're going to tear up the road for the next 2 years, drainage, and it's going to mess everything up. Those of you who ride the trolley will see it, or if you wait on any of those stops down there on Gulf Boulevard, think of that between Walsingham and Park. It's going to take about 2 years to get done, and that's the kind of stuff we get briefed on. It's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's happening, when's it going to happen, how long is it take, blah, 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 blah. That's the kind of stuff, again, if you're into that, by all means, it's a lot of fun. They have something called the Transportation Alternative Grants, and we got a great presentation that they're revamping the process. This is pass-through money they get, and if you think of transportation alternatives, bikes, walking, alternatives to cars. And they took a bunch of them, it sounded like about 10, 12 years ago, and that queue just got clogged. So they finally said, this isn't working. We're going to grandfather anything that comes in. If we haven't given it money in 3 years, it's out. You need to resubmit your grants because the city is changing so fast. And it was really great to hear how much thought they put into it. You're going to get so many points if it's near a school, so many points if it involves whatever, I can't even remember, handicap access, if it's close to a bus line. So we got the presentation of the executive of what goes into getting a grant, and then the cities are going to write for the grants, and here's where the money comes from the grants. And again, those are the kind of presentations. So it's neat to know those grants are out there for transportation alternatives. Finally, we got a presentation again from FDOT about the Franklin and all of that. And as your representative, anytime anyone says the word toll lane, I always just vote no on principle that buses are first. So in this case, the vote was, I think, 17-2. There were 2 of us voting no. But I always stand up and make the same speech. It's not our job to get money to Tampa. It's not our job to get cars to Tampa. It's our job to get people to Tampa. You can get them in buses, you can get them in jitneys, you can get them on bicycles. You don't get people there on toll lanes. So finally, I'll offer again, every month I get all kinds of neat Pinellas County maps that involve forecasts, traffic, fatalities. They're all in PDF. I'll be glad to show them to you. You can look them up on the web. And lastly, you guys probably all know it still hasn't been signed, the infamous toll road to nowhere, the ones up and south as transit. Again, I can't speak for you guys, but as transit folks, having extra highways, tearing up farmland, its only purpose is to build subdivisions and add more cars. The CAC, the Citizens Committee, agreed that we as a group would oppose it. I have since personally called the governor's office, and we still have time. I'm going to a protest right after this downtown in Williams Park, opposing that. It is the antithesis of transit, if you think about it. A toll road at the end of the Veterans all the way to the Georgia line when I-75 already runs there. A toll road through the middle of the Everglades when we've already got I-75 down there. Its only purpose is to let people build gated cul-de-sac subdivisions, more cars, more water. We've telling the governor, again, that's what CAC did. I didn't mean to, all right, I did mean to work a little bit of advocacy in there. That's my report. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I'm a little worried how those talk about toll roads. Somebody said, and it was a driver that said, that I don't know how many people are moving to Pinellas County. It frightened me. And they're all gonna want to drive cars.
Unless we can fix that.
Yeah.
I know.
Action items. Has anyone had a chance to read and review the minutes from the meeting April 16th? Checked out? Okay. If not, we need a motion to approve. I motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. The motion has been approved. And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have a capital program update from Debbie Leas. And there she is. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Leas. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at PSTA. Oftentimes I come during budget season to talk to this team about what's going on with the budget. And today we're going to talk about the capital budget. I am always welcome to come at any time to talk about the budget process. I find numbers so exciting. But today we're going to be talking about what our capital needs are and our capital reserves and how we're using them. As Elizabeth reported, we at the last, or you I should say, at the last, okay. You have it on.
You turn it.
No, this is on. I'll let you play with this while I your Jared now. There. But last month, this group made a decision that was recommended to the board to not have any service cuts. And as Elizabeth reported out, the board voted unanimously that we should not have any service cuts at this time. You got it working?
No.
Nope.
I'll lead you. I'll be your clicker.
Oh, will you be my clicker? That's wonderful. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with that. When the board voted to have no service cuts, what we basically said is we're going to approve taking money from our capital reserves to put towards operations. So we're going to talk a little bit about the implications of that and how it affects the capital plan. By the end of this year, we anticipate having $23 million sitting in our capital reserve fund. About $8.5 million of that is going to go towards operations since we're not cutting the service, because we're operating at a deficit. The rest of the money will be used towards our capital plan, and we'll be talking about that isn't quite enough. Click. Let me explain this chart. We've been affectionately calling it the popsicle chart because there's multiple colors on here. And this is telling us what we're using for operations. The green bar is all of our operating revenues that come in. So that's money that you put in the fare box, it's your ad valorem or property taxes, advertising revenue, interest income, all of that is going in to go towards operations. This year, which is the, go back, that's okay. The first bar here is our budget for this year, an $81 million budget. We knew at the beginning of the year we'd have about $1.7 million deficit that we'd be dipping into our capital reserves to fund that. As you can see on here, we keep dipping in for the next 3 years, about $8.5 million. And what ends up happening between operations and capital is we run out of money. So now in the following year, in 2022, we have to make significant cuts, about $12.1 million, not the $800,000 that we were talking about in this year. So right now we have no new operating assistants coming in here, which I'm hoping will happen somewhere, that somebody will give us some money. And if not, we'll be making severe cuts in 2022. And what this means is we are right now one of the lowest funded agencies in the country as far as getting funding from other places. I always like to talk about my hometown of Buffalo. And Buffalo is the same metropolitan service area as Pinellas County. And Buffalo gets twice as much funding, and it's no surprise they have twice as many rides as we do. So by not getting any money and by putting money towards operations, this keeps us at the lowest end of the scale. Thanks, Vanna. So in our capital plan, right now we have $146 million programmed for the next 5 years. A lot of that is going towards buses, it's going towards the BRT, it's going towards a lot of things that we'll be talking about. But what my real needs are, just to maintain what we have today, is going to cost $164 million. This doesn't even address what we could do to improve service, buy more buses, provide more service. And the reason I can't talk about more is because when you take a look, we've got in the cookie jar $23 million. That's going to quickly be going down by the end of 2020 to $15 million. And by the time we end up in 2021, we're down to less than $1 million to work with. And that's why we have to then start looking at some very drastic changes in the following year. So what is funded in our capital plan? Where is this money going to? Well, we have our replacement buses, and we're doing something a little bit different going forward. We have, for those of you who go up and down Gulf Boulevard, which you were just talking about, we have trolleys that are quite old. They've long exceeded their useful life. They're running well, but we want to replace them. So we said, well, if we have this problem, how can I save some money? So we are actually going to be looking to buy 20 trolley buses. So we're going to be replacing 16 of our old buses, have 4 more there, because their useful life isn't quite as long as one of our bigger buses. But who doesn't love riding a trolley? I mean, everybody loves the work that we put out to Jolly Trolley. We'll also be buying more hybrid buses. We've got money in there for buying more electric buses if we're successful with the Low-No grants. Talk a little bit more about it, but I've got some technology replacements. I also have the Flamingo Fair app in there, as well as the Central AF BRT. In the Central AF BRT, we're using our money to help leverage more money from the federal and state government. And that's what we like to do, is to be able to take a little bit of ours to get a lot of somebody else's. And what do I call it, Cassandra? OPM.
Other people's money.
Other people's money. Yes.
This,
Yes, Brian.
Is this a form of justification? You have to justify to the government the amount of money that you're going to receive for them? Is that?
What the government says is you have to have, the federal government says, I'm willing to give you money if it's a good project and it meets all kinds of criteria, but they want to see local support, local buy-in for what you're doing. So the more local funding you have, the better off you are to do that. So we're saying we're going to be putting in $7.6 million of our own money. City of St. Pete is going to put in money. That's considered local. FDOT is going to be putting $9.5 million in. That's local. So pretty much we're coming up with about a 50-50 split here for what we're doing for the BRT. And then we always like to have money for matching for grants. We're going to be putting in some money for a build grant for replacing our park terminal And that would require us to also have a match if we're successful getting it. Next. So let's talk a little bit about my technology. A couple months ago, it was brought to our attention that beyond our normal technology items that we have in our budget, by the time we get out to 2023, our technology we have today will no longer be supported for like our real-time information. Everything is going to 5G, and nothing will be supported. So we have some short-term solutions to get us there, but this is so important to our riders and so important for us to be able to operate our system. Estimated cost is $10 million. Now, I've been able to literally cobble together in our capital plan some funding for this, because I am saving money using those trolleys to be able to do this, but that also means something else has to go away. I mentioned, we've already talked about this, our BRT service, and that's a $43.9 million project. This is really a good capstone project to show the community what we at PSTA can do to make public transit really exciting, fast, frequent service. Next. But what is not funded? I'm sure I didn't even include everything on this list, but the top of the list says maintaining state of good repair. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I have to keep what I have in good working order. We have electric bus charging infrastructure. That's something we're going to need if we're going to have more electric buses. And the list goes on and on and on. And I'll let you go to the next one. So what does it mean to be in a state of good repair? The federal government came along and said, I know we've got a backlog, but what is the backlog? And they're requiring of every transit agency in the country to go ahead, and we had to put together what we call a transit asset management plan, a TAM plan. And what we had to do is inventory all of our assets, take a look at it from what state of good repair is it in? Is it exceptional? Is it good? Is it bad? What's the risk if it goes away? We had to do a whole bunch of work to put this excellent plan together. So what it does in any of these plans is it says, what do you need to do to keep good, reliable public transportation out there? And that's basically about what that is when I talk about state of good repair. Next. One of the ones that we're looking at is to have the infrastructure for all these electric buses coming in. We would love to have more electric buses because it takes away the dependency on the diesel fuel, which is something I can't control very well. I try to control it a little bit by locking into fuel prices, but I don't have control over the marketplace. Right now, again, it's about a $10 million cost to be able to put all the infrastructure in, be able to do what we need to do. I have no funding sources available for this. We are going to be putting an application in for a bus and bus facility grant. If I do that, I need a $1 million match for that I have in the program. Next. The other one is our Clearwater Intermodal Transit Station. We're in the design process right now, with the design expected to be completed in 2020. We'll be putting in a grant application for that, and we will need a $4 million match for that one. Next. So these matching funds, as I mentioned, are very, very important. When we can take what we have and leverage it by investing like $20 here, I get $80 from somebody else. It's a good deal rather than me paying the full 100. A lot of times at the federal government, they look for a 20% match. Sometimes it's 10. Occasionally it's 50 in order to be able to win the discretionary award. So it's very important. And I look at this as an opportunity for a lot of our funding partners to be able to step up to the table and give us some money for something they feel passionate about. So what can we do? Well, the MPO can prioritize our public transportation capital investment. So we'll be making sure you write that
Yes, I
down.
know.
And then the other thing is, besides our own money, I think it would be great, as I just mentioned, for the county to be able to put money into, whether it be operations or capital, and also look at different cities for funding. There's plenty that we can take a look at to do. So I think you can see it's become a little bit of a tug of war for me. And for the organization. You've got the operating on one side because we want to provide you with the most service that we possibly can. The capital side of being able to maintain the buses and the facilities, et cetera, to be able to provide that service. So I've got needs on both sides, and my piggy bank is not big enough to handle it all. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What's the possibility of a partnership with Duke Energy for the charging stations?
Oh, I think that's something that we will definitely be looking
I
at.
would think that would be a real good match.
Excellent, excellent suggestion. That is something we're building relationships with Duke Energy because obviously they'll benefit from the electric.
Good
buses.
PR, good
Yep.
everything for them.
Excellent. Any other questions? Yes, Elizabeth?
More like a public comment. People will share bus passes. I'm done for the day, here. And they leave it right there where the trash is on the bus, and people will grab it. And they think it's for free. I've been at a bus stop on Park Boulevard, and I see the pass. I could use it. It's got another day. It was a 3-day pass. I ripped it up, threw it out. I'm not using it because that's stealing. And I had a to-do on the bus the other day. I keep bus passes, one-time bus, as charity. Somebody needs a pass, give them a pass. And this lady wanted to give him her pass. Hey, I'm done with it. You can use it. And I said, no, the bus company needs people to pay for their own passes. I've got a pass for him, as a matter of fact. So, and the bus driver heard the whole thing. He was so proud of me. and he heard me get into a little bit with the lady until she finally understood. The fella who was getting the free pass really didn't understand, and we just had patience with him. Finally, he got it. But I would like to put out there to my fellow riders, you can't do this for free. Don't give somebody else a free pass. Everybody needs to pay their way. My goodness, we need them to pay their way. So I'm doing my part.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to buy bus passes to give away when it's needed, so they don't start sharing it. And they do it all the time. Anything else? Or was that enough promotion for you? Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, and anytime you want me to come back and talk about budgets, I didn't see one person fall asleep, so that's good
That's
news.
good. Yay.
Not this year.
Oh.
Okay, and next, we have Track Star Award update, Bob Lasher.
Oh, good, Debbie, I get to put people to sleep now.
Bob, you never put people to sleep.
This, hey, don't talk to my wife then. Hey, this is pretty short. It's taken a while. I've been waiting to hear from both Seminole, City of Seminole, and the county, and we finally gotten dates. So within about 2 hours, actually about an hour and a half, I'm going to be picking up Mark O'Hare. We're going to be heading down to Seminole City Council, making the presentation to Assembler there for the most recent Track Star. And the other will be 2 p.m. a week from today at Board of County Commissioners. Gloria is going to be making that one. That's the one we went to Public Works. I want to take this opportunity to remind you, we need some nominations. We need to help get the word out. So remember to talk this up when you're out and about, like the CAC, if you're going to the bicycle committees or others. Let people know if they see something that's really good for pedestrians and transit to nominate them for the awards. We can get out there, and the more we get this out there, the better it'll be for all of us, especially for transit and pedestrians. And I want to thank you for the efforts you put in so far. And that's the Track Star update. Thank you.
What were those
Yes.
2 locations, Seminole?
Seminole City Council is tonight. Their meeting starts at 6, but Mark doesn't get off until 6, so I'm going to pick him up, and we're going to head down there.
And where are they doing the improvement?
The improvement was on Park Street by the Coles
Coles.
and Total Wine.
Yes.
And I can send out pictures again in the email to show you where they are. And the other improvement was up on McMullen Booth Road by the hospital in East Countryside, where they put in a new crosswalk. That's the Public Works one that goes next week to the county.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Neat stuff. Thank you.
Can I say on that I crossed where that crosswalk was missing and grumbled like one of those negative,
Yeah.
let's say negative Nancy's. I can't believe nobody's put a crosswalk here. And it was Lisa who said, well, I should write and ask for it. And son of a gun, she said, within the week, someone was out there painting it. I mean, they put it right through. And it had been maybe 6 months, almost a year previously. I had walked down, crossed, and someone oughta. And so now let that be the lesson. Don't be complaining, go and tell them. They're really anxious. The planning department is responsive to that kind of stuff. I own up to that all the time because I'm the lesson of the guy who didn't say it.
All right, thank you. And we have another comment over here?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I did that about 5 or 6 years ago and grumbled. If I'd have known, I would have spoke up. You can hear it.
Yeah. So let's all agree, we're gonna, if you see it, say it. Someone will, they're ready to help. It's a different time. It's a different time in Pinellas County.
I had that experience with city of Pinellas Park. They were very responsive and they ran out and they fixed tree limb, potholes. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. Now, if they would also participate in getting these grants
Yeah.
and accommodating all these new residents that we expect.
I was
Go ahead.
downtown today, riding the looper again. I did it a couple weeks ago when I went down today just to take some pictures of. I did do the surveys, but what I noticed down there were a lot of other things, like right in front of the Chamber of Commerce, St. Petersburg, on 2nd Avenue North, I got pictures. They have like 4 big pavers like this, sitting right on the grass. Here's the sidewalk, it goes down like this, and then there's these 4 pavers where you have to go to get onto the looper or else the electric bus. And there's no way a wheelchair or even a baby buggy, a lady had a shopping cart. You know. I stood on it, it kind of rocks. That's why I went down to get pictures of it. But I finally got back to it. I'll get all that stuff together and get it to somebody.
Yes.
But it's definitely, it's right in front of
Yeah.
the Chamber of Commerce. So, and the lady inside said, she had trouble with it herself, but she said, I owe the city of St. Pete. And I didn't say one way or the other. But I don't know who is responsible for that, because the looper does still run under their own, just the electric bus runs in 2 loopers every day.
So we're in the process of fixing some of the downtown stops, but I'm very appreciative of your.
Well, there's a lot of
pictures. Yeah.
construction going on in some other parts too. This is like,
I think maybe next time we can get project management here to talk about the stop improvements that they have planned.
Yeah, that whole route was redone. So
Yes.
they went from, 10 stops to 20.
Yeah,
so
we added a lot of
with our
stops.
eyeballs.
Yeah, so we're getting those fixed, but thank you. It's good, yeah.
Alrighty, and the next,
I just wanted to say that something's going on with the electronic signage at Gateway Mall. Since March 15th, I have called the info line 5 times for one or the other one being down. As a matter of fact, I called Friday, I called yesterday. It's really, I mean, people are like, when's the bus, when's it getting here, and with the rains and everything else. I mean, I'm there with my phone showing people where their buses are, so something's really going on with that. And that's 5 times I've called, and there's at least 2 to 3 other times that I've just been in such a hurry, I haven't had time to call or it slipped my mind, so if we could get something done.
Sue, is it intermittent, or is it just off, and it has been off?
Friday, the easternmost one was not working, the westernmost one was. Yesterday, both of them were, well, they say no arrivals. They've got the date and the time, but it just says no arrivals. So there is a display, but no GPS connectivity.
So intermittent,
Yeah.
kind of random.
And like I said, it'll be one, and then it'll be the other, and then it'll be both of them, and
And he's at a rainstorm or nothing like that, right?
well, yesterday, or, sorry, Saturday, or Friday, no, there was no rain. So, yeah, it's, and during April, we really didn't get that much rain, so it's just frustrating.
I'll agree with you, because at Central Plaza, some of the signs, not all of them, would be doing the same thing, just saying no arrival. But I'll be using the app, and the bus is coming, but it doesn't match what the sign should be saying.
Alrighty, does anybody else have some
I've
specific
got,
track?
The Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Back to Star Wars.
okay.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Please, yeah, we
Yeah, we have a section for member comments,
Right,
and we
right,
can
right.
continue
Sorry.
that, but we want to get to the presentation.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for Nicole. How do you say it? Duva.
So,
Okay.
as we discussed last meeting and the meeting before, talking about our outreach opportunities, as you all have agreed to be our PSTA ambassadors out in the community. And so first, before I give you an update about our outreach opportunities for the upcoming months, I'd like to recognize one of our TRAC members for helping out with our spring break service, because the spring break park and ride is now over. And so it's complete, and he came out and helped us 4 different shifts on very hot days out at Clearwater Beach. So I just want to recognize Mr. Edwin Klump. If you want to come up, we have a little gift for you. So we really want to recognize all of you who do come out. And so now that spring break is over, we just wanted to recognize you, Ed, with a little gift with some PSTA swag as well, so you can rock more PSTA gear while you're out in the community. So thank you very much. Right, so these are socks, so if Ed feels
When I'm
comfortable
wearing
to
a
share.
pair of shorts, yeah.
Yeah.
Ideal
But yes, and we recognize that there are a few others who have really helped out with the Looper survey. Thank you, Teresa, Camille, and Renee for also going out last month and really helping us out with collecting our surveys on the Looper trolley. That is actually still ongoing. So I'll just go through it real quick. This is a rundown of what we've talked about before. This was from last month, understanding our goals for our outreach. We talked about the different types of outreach support, so including the how to ride training, the surveys, attending community events. So like we said, Ed came out 4 different times on very hot days and was a real trooper. I don't have any pictures of him. I can't believe I didn't take any pictures of you when you were out there, Ed. But helped folks understand which trolley to get on, not even just about our park and ride service, but answering questions about PSTA in general. So it was really helpful, and we really appreciate what you've done, Ed. So for our upcoming opportunities, we do have the Downtown Loopers still that we need support with. And the other thing coming up is our June service change. So that we will need some support, or we could really use some support actually on the day of the service change and the 2 days after. So what the outreach team traditionally does is we go out usually the Monday of the service change, and we go and we are at the terminal. So we're at the transit center. We're at because of the 5 and the 9 changes, we will be out at Grand Central Station and Gateway Mall. So if there is times, we have a shift sign up with Juan. If you would like to sign up after the meeting, we can accommodate your schedule, because really we just want to be out there. And there's 3 of us and a lot of hours in the day. So any help that any availability that you have, if it's after work, before work, during the day, it would really help the outreach team a lot. And then some upcoming events, but I don't have any details on those, but know that those can be on your radar for the summer. If we need any help with our Car-Free Living, our Car-Free St. Pete campaign, we always have SPC has welcome back events at each of their campuses for the fall, so August. And then we will definitely want some support with the October service changes once we know what those will be definitively. And then we can always use help riding the bus, or same with the June service change being out at the main transit centers. So for the Downtown Looper, again, thank you to Camille, Teresa, and Renee for going out. Are there, I would like to ask, any general, did you like it? Was it a good experience for you? And maybe Ed too, so other TRAC members can hear if that's something that they want to dive into?
I'll go first on that. I thought it was a great thing to be able to help. There were so many people really confused about, where do I get this? Where do I get that? Does this one come through?
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. Being out there, yeah. Yeah.
Because if we hadn't been out there, there would have been no one answering those questions, and there would have been a lot more. It took me a while to catch on to everything.
Yeah.
Those sheets you gave me helped
Yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
but
We do provide you with information, so we don't just throw you out there for folks to be able to pepper you with questions, but we do make sure that you have the appropriate information to be able to help folks. How about Teresa, Camille, how was your experience?
It was good.
Yep.
I rode with a couple different drivers.
Mhm.
I rode on the electric bus and then on the trolleys.
Mhm.
And they do things a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of tourists were still in town. Like today, but today was such lousy weather. There was hardly
Yeah.
anybody riding. There's quite a few people that do ride it daily.
Mhm.
Not a lot, but I also was there. I wasn't there in the morning hour.
Yeah.
Evening
Mhm.
hour either.
Mhm. You're in the middle of the
Probably
day.
more- Yeah, probably more people riding
Mm-hmm.
in the downtown area that live there. But
Yeah.
basically tourists,
Basically tourists.
and they have heard of it. It seemed word of mouth more than anything.
Finding out about it.
Is how they found out about it.
Was it easy to talk to people? You found
Yeah.
that they were willing to engage?
Most all of them.
Yeah, most of them. That's true. Camille?
We got rained out.
You got rained out. That's right. And Renee?
I ride it all the time and I talk to people all the time. That day it rained pretty hard.
I met a lot of different people from out of town, so
You met a
really
lot of
want to help
tourists.
them out with that, and it was fun.
All right. Well, thank you all again for coming out. So we do still have the sign up for the Looper as well. I can send it out via a link for you to look at it later on, or you can take a look with Juan and I after the TRAC meeting and see if there is something that fits in with your schedule. And we even have some materials so that if you do it sooner rather than later, you can have everything you need for your trip. Do we need to go through any of this, the basics of conducting surveys or of engaging our riders and passengers, making sure that when you go out there, you introduce yourself to the PSTA staff out there. If you're out at a terminal, let the customer service folks know that you're out there. Feel free to introduce yourself to the bus operator so that they know what you're doing out there. Always be friendly and courteous. If you don't know something, if you get questions that you don't know the answer to, write that down and let us know. That way we can follow back up. That way, if there's something that goes unanswered, we're able to at least reach back out and make sure that the folks are able to get that information. And that can happen at any point when you're out at the terminal, out on the bus, or out at our any one of our events, getting questions that you don't know the answer to. That way, we're able to make sure that they go answered. Outreach attire. I see Teresa's wearing her shirt. Awesome. Anyone else? Edwin's now got some socks that you can absolutely wear. Yeah, and how to sign up will be here after the meeting today, so if you have any questions or are interested in taking a look at what the schedule looks like, just let us know and we will be available. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
If I can add, it's great to hear how many folks here, just in our little stories, have been talking to people at the bus stop, helping people out. We all have little skills. We know how to run the transit app. We know which buses stop at our stops, and most folks are low experience. Why we're sitting on track is because we're experienced users. I know that's what I always try to do. If I see someone having a bad day, being a little lost, I use the word transit ambassador. I'm always an ambassador. I'm always trying to put a good foot in. So even if I don't have time, of course I don't, but if I know the sign's out, I'm going to show them how to use it. At least I know this. And it's neat to hear these stories. I couldn't make it to the beach, but I always can help a guy. It's neat to hear all of us doing that. Thanks.
Any member comments? Renee?
I was brought up an opportunity to give an idea to this group about, we have a northbound connector. I was asked by a bus driver if we could have a southbound connector, like in South St. Pete area. That's what I was brought up. I was like, what do you mean by, like, if some people can't ride buses to catch places, go places, how about we have a connection to go pick them up at their place and take them where they need to go? Honestly, I'll bring it up. That's what I was told by bus driver.
We've asked a number of times for new services, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what part of the county, and we always look at the productivity of that potential service. And right now, without additional funding, we won't be putting out any new service. Right now, we're even talking about making the connectors in North County fixed route in order to keep them on time. We've had some challenges with some of the deviations not staying on time, so that the ridership goes down if we can't provide a reliable service. And that's been a challenge for us. But if somebody can't get to the bus stop, they could qualify for DART, and so that is another possibility.
So I read the Central Avenue trolley, and in South Pasadena, there are red signs popping up all along from a group called Save Our Roads, which I assume is about the BRT project. Is there any citizen response to that?
I don't think there is an organized
I mean, this
citizen
seems, it seems
response, but
like
it is, you're
no
right.
tax for tracks or whatever.
Yes,
Just
and there's a
like
lot
in
of
the
misinformation,
incarnation.
and we're talking about how we're going to clear up that misinformation.
Seems to be mostly along Pasadena.
Yes, so there's the 6-lane section of Pasadena where we're proposing a business access and transit lane. So the lane will still be there. It will be prioritized for transit and will allow turns out of that lane. So you'll still be able to make right-hand turns, but not through lanes. So the traffic analyses that we've done in that along the entire corridor show that there would be no significant impact to the traffic by changing the use of that lane, so repurposing that lane for transit and turns into businesses. So the business access will stay the same, people's use of the lane will still exist, so there is no lane loss, and those lanes will absolutely be available for emergency services and hurricane evacuation. And I know that a few years ago, the city of South Pasadena was talking about reducing that section of the roadway to a four-lane section, because it's really their main street. And there was a big pushback from the Florida Department of Transportation because of hurricane evacuation. And so by maintaining those lanes, we're maintaining all of what needs to happen in that section of roadway.
Is there anything we can do to kind of help soften that for them?
Well, I mean, certainly you're welcome to come to anything.
Is it mostly businesses that are pushing back? Or
It's
is it
mostly,
government,
it seems to be a group of people, maybe they've been organized before and they're reorganizing, who have gotten a piece of some information but haven't looked at everything. So, I mean, we can tell you where we are going to speak, like tonight, Brad's at St. Pete Beach. I think we can probably, Bob and Marianne can get the list of when we are going to be out, and if you would like to come out and be in support of the project, then I think that would be a great opportunity. Yeah, so maybe we need to advertise that a little bit more for people who are in support of the project, so that you all can come out and participate in that too.
If I can add, you know, I attended the national conference in Savannah last year. I'm going to Louisville, Kentucky in just 2 weeks for the Congress of New Urbanism. And there are all kinds of scientific papers and studies and macroeconomics pointed that if you take 3 lanes down to 2, but don't move the curb, you just paint it red, it does not affect total throughput. It just does not. However, intuitively, everybody can tell if you went from 3 to 2, you're losing a lane, and that is fearful. Actually, the group is called Preserve Our Lane. Preserve that lane. They're stealing our lane. And you say, well, you don't need a lane, you need throughput. And here's a paper, doctor this, professor that. I don't need facts, I want my lane. And that's what those signs are about. Preserve our lane. And you say, well, doesn't actually make any sense. I don't need sense, I need anger. I need votes, I need your money so that you'll preserve our lane. And that's what you run up against. And in the end, you know, there's all kinds of movements that have been based on anger rather than hundreds of scientific papers that absolutely prove this has no effect. It will increase business, it will increase access, it will increase blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't feel right. So I get out there and throw bottles and be mad. Preserve our lane.
How do we get a hold of these preserve our lane people? Do we
Oh, just stay, walk around wearing a green
posters
shirt.
right next to their posters?
They'll find
They're
you.
not gonna be riding buses, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. It won't be at the bus stop.
Yeah, step off a bus, they'll find you.
But we'll get do an opposition flag. I mean, they're sticking up their flags, but when right next to it, say, here are the I don't know what it would say.
This is a long.
Yeah. How are they
You
gonna-
just,
how are they gonna reach
in the end, if you cannot convince someone with facts, you have to just move ahead with good policy, public policy, and hope that public policy will win. It doesn't always win. We've seen that. You can have fear trump public policy.
Well, why don't we do this? We'll let you know when we're gonna be out, and then you can, if it fits your schedule, we would love for you to come out.
Who would be the contact person, like the main, like if we wanted to participate?
Why don't you?
Bob?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Talk to
Okay.
Bob.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, could we send, I mean, doesn't seem like we're breaking any kind of sunshine law to, if you send us an email once a month that said, here's our chances for us to be ambassadors, here's our chance for us to attend when Brad.
Well, we could just say, well, this is what's happening, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to be. This is the presentation we're going to give. You
I
know,
get that same kind of stuff
you're
from the
like-
Sierra Club and my quilting bee and this and that. I mean, those help a lot, and I just
I mean, you
run
are
them up
more
against
than
my camera.
welcome to do whatever you see fit to do, but we'll just tell you where we're gonna be.
Exactly. And we'll pick and choose what we want to go to and can.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
So you guys will have you guys will have those dates and can make sure they get sent out. And something that we've been doing as part of a consortium, which has been really interesting, is Car Free St. Pete. So if you go on your social media and you find Car Free St. Pete, we are working with Nickel Ride, Coast Bike, Cross Bay Ferry, and the city of St. Petersburg, really, to talk about all modes of transportation and all options to get around St. Pete without a car. So we're seeing how it goes in St. Pete first. They've been very receptive to it, and we think it's going pretty well. So we'll be part of that group for a while, and it's run out of the downtown partnership, and so they're the primary organizer, and so they put out information about other things that are happening, like Complete Streets. They had let everybody know who was watching their social media about the Complete Streets meetings at the city hall and things like that. So it's a start. It's kind of like this little movement that's coming out of the downtown partnership, which is kind of cool.
Hey, Cassandra, have we had a car-free presentation here?
I don't think we have. Maybe we'll do that next month. Yeah.
I was at the St. Pete, I don't live in St. Pete, but I went down to the St. Pete City Council meeting that approved. They've been toying with Complete Streets now for 2 years. They've done a couple pilot projects, and they ran it out to become the official policy that anytime they put in a curb, bury a sewer pipe, that project has to follow the Complete Street methodology. Is it got bike paths? Is it pedestrian conscious? It doesn't have to be built for pedestrians, but it can't be set up to run pedestrians over. It has to be Complete Street centric, conscious. And they made that official policy 2 weeks ago. And guess who showed up with 20 people wearing red shirts, and each took their 3 minutes to say, "You're going to ruin our town, destroy our city, you're stealing my street. I want to be able to, I can get," one person said, "I can get down Martin Luther King in 8 minutes now, and you're going to make it slower." So why are you racing down Martin Luther King? Kids play there, people live there. Oh, are you crazy? You're a murderer, you know? But again, that premise, and so Complete Streets is about slowing traffic down, neighborhoods. If you're driving through my neighborhood, it better be to stop and buy a cup of coffee or to visit your uncle, not to make a shortcut because 275 is backed up. That's what Complete Streets is about. If you're going somewhere, if you're going to Tampa on 275, and if 275 is backed up, wait. Wait in traffic. Don't jump off and run through my neighborhood as fast as you can. That's what Complete Streets says.
Hurricane season is just around the corner. So what's the premise for riding a bus and we have severe weather? How does that actually work? What's the?
Yeah.
So we have a hurricane plan that we do, that we update, and we prepare for hurricanes. We do use our regular bus service because the shelters in Pinellas County are along our regular route, so our routes don't change during an evacuation period. We do make sure that people evacuate early, and we do help certain areas of town with additional buses or facilities that need to get people out. We do help get more people out, and do have special provisions for allowing animals in carriers to come on the bus for evacuation. So I'm not sure if we have a period where we don't charge for the buses.
Yes.
So usually
Once
that's
the
so.
evacuation has been declared, fares are waived, and then they are waived until the shelters have been closed so that people can get home. Perfect. And then our buses stop operating when they reach, sustained winds reach tropical storm force, which is 39 miles an hour. And we have to pull the service in, and we can't put it out until the winds drop below that. But as we saw with Irma, there may be more to it, because when the winds dropped down, even though we didn't have the winds, there were so many street lights out and so many streets that were blocked that our safety security people said it's just not safe.
So that's why being part of our social media is important during an event. We'll post out which parts of the service are being shut down, which parts of the service are being brought online, because we have several places around the county that we stage our buses, so we don't leave them all here.
Right.
Because we're in an evacuation zone B and C, different parts of the campus here. And so we have a partnership with the school, and we have a partnership with the DOT to put our buses in various places around the county. So we begin that process, and so then we also begin to shut down the system systematically.
I remember seeing it at Clearwater High School.
Yeah.
After Irma, I remember it was like, whoa.
Well, if there's a tornado, you don't want to have all your buses in one place.
Right.
So you kind of spread around, you know?
Yeah. If there's flooding, we don't
flooding,
want it,
yeah.
we don't want it all in one place.
happens
So it might be good maybe in June or July to have James come and talk about what our hurricane preparedness and our planning and what happens during the hurricane.
Great idea.
The thought I'm hearing you say, though, is it's all about sheltering in place. We help people get to the high school and the middle school. In Katrina, there was a big issue about getting people out of town because of the flooding. It dawns on me that Amtrak, so for folks that don't own cars, and there's more and more people in town, millennials, that don't own cars, you've really got to be out of town 5, 6, 7 days ahead of time,
You do,
right?
yes.
Because by the time it's like tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, it's too late. You'll be sheltering in place.
Yes.
Got it.
I've got comments on 3 of these things. One, covering the most recent thing, I was on a bus that suddenly shut down while I was off of one bus and waiting for the 75. I got off the 18, was going to the 75. There was no announcement anywhere. There's nothing at Central Plaza about it. This was after the hurricane when we were starting service up in limited amounts. They just suddenly decided that the 75 was going to cut right then at 6:30 or whatever it was. I got off of one bus because there was no notice on that bus that I was riding that there'd be some limited changes as of 6:30 or whatever it was. So I got off the 18, which would have taken me miles closer than Tyrone, and at Tyrone, I was stuck with no ride. That was a very costly and aggravating thing. So somebody really needs to coordinate announcements when they're shutting down at a certain time. I rode the bus in the morning, there was no announcement. I got on the 18, there was no announcement the whole time. I was at Central Plaza, there was no announcement. So I was extremely frustrated with that. Anyway, that really needs to be coordinated better. Another thing is, we're gonna use the same type of sign-up sheets that we used for the Clearwater spring break thing, for the sign-up sheets for volunteering.
Yeah, similar, depends on the event, but yes, we'll
'Cause that's-
use something similar.
That was very easy to figure out, and if there was an open spot, then, you needed someone, and,
Perfect. So you did like the Google Sheet that worked
Yeah.
for you? Okay.
yeah, that worked for me. I was the fact that it said staff was a little confusing to me at first, because
There were other
I
staff.
figured it was, a staff person was going to be in the first one, and we would add our names besides it. So, once I got the idea that that wasn't the case, that everything was okay, it's just very confusing at first.
Yes, we might actually move towards a different online platform for signups called Sign Up Genius. So we'll test that out as well, and if anyone has any comments on how that works differently or better, if it's not better, then that's fine, but compared to the Google Doc sheet sign up.
And the other thing I was going to comment on is there are closings because of construction, especially in St. Pete. And somehow word of mouth has got to get back to you that this is happening. I'll be looking in the future if I see any in my path that, travel, that their stop suddenly disappeared. But there needs to be a better way of keeping up with it as a rider and preventing it from happening on all of our part as we notice it.
That process is intimidating. Again, I see a spreadsheet about this thick with 20 entries per page. So if you think maybe 20,000 entries, City of Gulfport, City of Tarpon, City of Oldsmar, unencumbered this or that, here comes a sewer, and then those have to roll out to finance departments, purchase, blah, blah, blah. And I know some of it rolls here, but then you've got to look at it and say, well, that's a residential, doesn't apply, which ones have routes on them, and does it affect a bus stop? I know it's out there, but holy smokes, then by the way, if it does affect a bus stop, is it the inside lane or the outside lane? It does need to be done, but I'll tell you, when I sit in those CAC meetings and I look at, they've stopped, thank God they've stopped giving us the printout. They now send us the PDF, and I just think, they said, by the way, Pinellas County is leading edge, that all 23 cities send everything into this stack, that there are counties that run blind, where Largo doesn't know what Seminole's doing, so at least we have that stack. to tell you.
Right.
But it's very intimidating to sit in those meetings and just think about.
Maybe we'll have facilities come and talk about how we manage stops. So,
And by the way, not only bus stops, but bicycle paths. When you shut a bicycle path, the bike needs, does he have a way to ride around it, you know? And should we block off a lane so a bike cannot, you know, and shut again. I can't even get my head around the complexity of
The one
running this county.
I'm primarily talking about, because it's right in front of me in my acupuncture volunteer place, and I use that stop, except that it became non-existent, and I didn't even know the stop had disappeared. 3/4 or more of the street is now fences.
Right.
The sidewalk is a little path between the fence blocking the street and fence blocking construction on Central Ave.
And there's no
And
sidewalk
downtown.
across the street either.
Yeah, and no sidewalk across the street. So if you don't know it, you're suddenly, and I mean, there's more involved that, should have been done. I still say they shouldn't have allowed so much to be closed off at once. And then they put one handicap parking space out of 8 or 9 parking spaces, except that the ones that they need to reduce more are the regular people who can walk,
Yeah, go park somewhere.
and save those for the pedestrians. So, and I know that's nothing, it's just poor planning on the municipality. City of St. Pete should have, but we should know when when a stop is no longer viable. And, it saves a lot of problems. If a driver hadn't stopped that one night and told me that there was no stop there, and let me on, I would have been taking a cab to get home. So, because I would have been too late for my connection, so.
So is the stop completely moved? Is that what
It's
you're saying?
gone. There is no way to get on the bus, on the thing, because they can't even pull over now. The fence goes right where they would. It's limited to 2 lanes of driving, and when you finally get up to where they're not doing construction, you get a little more lane back and you get sidewalk capability back.
Central, right?
16th, between 16th and 18th, I guess it is, because I don't think 17th goes in there at all.
See, Cassandra's
Any-
taking notes, we're
Both-
good?
Any other
Both
topics?
it's flat on Central, and
Any
it's the
other
north
topics
end,
or-
south
Okay,
side.
Cassandra's got the notes, she's all set. Anything else? Ready to wrap up?
Any other comments?
Any other comments? There's been diligent note-taking over here. We're good. We're good. The only little thing I have to say before we leave is that 74, there's construction at Seminole City Center. The drivers are so good to me because they have to park up on the sidewalk. They hang on to the back of my chair so I don't tip forward and I don't lose my gym bag. They're hanging on me. You're good, you're good. And I just want to say they're paying attention. They're caring about me. They're caring about my chair. And we're dealing with that construction. And I hope it'll be pretty when it's done.
Kudos to the drivers on
Yes.
that.
So,
Yes.
I want to make sure that you all know that if you see something, like what Sue brought up, or there's something that happens out, tell us right away. Don't wait for this meeting to tell us that there's something out there. Remember that because you're on the track, please, I appreciate that you call the info line, but, call Bob, call
Call Bob.
Okay, Bob, you're going on speed dial.
Yeah.
Call the Bob line.
Yeah, call any one of us, and we'll help you directly. I think, Brian asked for a light, you got a light. How long did that take?
I was impressed with
Yeah.
your time.
So
frame,
it's the advantage of being here, so.
Yeah,
no.
if it's a matter of putting two and two together, it's like, why am I calling this again?
Right,
Kind of
so,
thing.
and I certainly, we want this meeting to be positive and productive, and if you see something out there that is not quite right, we'd rather just handle that for you than have
Yeah.
you have to turn this into a complaint session, so.
If we see it, 100 people are seeing it.
Exactly.
So let's have us do it with a
Exactly.
positive
So
outlook.
tell us right away,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you're not going to be here at every meeting, so I just have to go through Nicole, these individuals through an email.
Yes, Mary Ann, Bob, Nicole, or
Just
one,
pass that on, and then
any one
we'll
of
get to
them.
you.
Well,
We'll
they
get to
can
someone.
solve it
They can
without
solve
me.
it, right.
Yeah, they're good at that.
Unless you find a lot of money.
Yeah, right? That changes everything.
If they can't solve it, then they'll bring
Okay.
All right, well, I'm happy, all this good information, all these good ideas.
it. We got some great things to talk about
Yes.
over the next few months, and if you ever have anything else, you're like, I'm really curious about this, just shoot us an email, and we keep, behind the scenes, we keep a 6-month matrix of what's coming up on the agenda, and we, keep our ideas there and move things around as they become topics for the board, or become timely, like a hurricane season discussion. And so we'll put these on there. We're not gonna forget, Mary Ann's gonna do that first thing when she gets back to her desk, put these on the matrix, so we'll be good to go. So if you ever have any other ideas of things you're curious about, we'll just put them on there.
Okay, thank you, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. Well done. Next meeting is June 18th, 2019.
See you then.
Remember, if anyone wants to sign up for the Looper survey or service charge outreach, please sign and talk to us.
I have no trouble.
That was a good meeting.